Coming up on AI Unscripted, join hosts Dan Brown and Eric Carey as they explore revolutionary AI tools shaping industries from healthcare to education. Get ready for an episode filled with expert insights and enlightening discussions. Don't miss out. Tune in to discover how AI is transforming our world.
All right. Well, welcome back, everybody, to episode number 2. Last time we were doing our first podcast, we didn't know what we were going to do. If we're going to do another one to see how well it went, how our conversation flow went, and I think it went pretty well. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I think it was good. Hopefully, good.
Yeah. I think it's slowly kind of got better and better as we went, and we're getting the learning process. We've got a new feature going on with a new recording service, and so I think we're going to try this out and see how it feels. Again, the reason why we call this AI Unscripted is because it is unscripted. This is us kind of just having a conversation about our passion, right? Our passion of AI and what we both enjoy just having conversations about. We both spend our free time looking at news articles and looking at YouTube videos and TikTok videos and videos on Twitter and X and all the above. So why not, have a conversation about it, record it, and let other people enjoy it. So that's what we're going to kind of dive in and do. So today's episode is going to be a lot more about AI tools and the AI toolbox that we have access to, whether it's the really known ones or the really unknown ones, from the big guys and the little guys and everything in between. So you feel like that's going to be a variety of topics. What do you think? You think it's
yeah, and you see these are just some tools. There's just so many tools that it's unbelievable. So I think we're probably just going to highlight just a few today, and this is obviously we'll continuously be highlighting more and more stuff. That's the one good thing about generative AI at the moment is that there's so much stuff happening that there's just a lot. There's a lot we could talk about. So yeah. That's in our favor.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more, and I think I'm excited about this episode. I'm excited about getting started and talking about it. So let's go ahead and head into the segment. So we'll see what we can do. All right, so like I said on the start of this, the intro of it, we're going to get started on AI tools. Today we're going to talk about a variety of topics. We really, in the beginning, kind of want to really lean towards AI and tech, like how, obviously it's the technology and how we're dealing with it. But one of the things that we found interesting in the news this week was how ChatGPT and how AI is going to help with law firms. I think when ChatGPT was first released, people were like, "Oh, forget being a lawyer. Don't go to law school because ChatGPT is going to be able to write all the letters, the legal letters for you, and take care of all that for you." And so now, actually, though, we're starting to see some things in the news where there is some leaning towards that.
Well, so yeah, for any lawyer friends are watching that, they might be rolling their eyes right now. But what I do think is that, when you look at a legal, some lawyers bill at like $500, $600 an hour and more. And so, I think what lawyers forget is that even if you can reduce your legal bill, that's a huge win. And I think that's that's already available now. And because, a lot of times you say, okay, do I even want to call a lawyer on this? This is like so expensive. So I think there's tools that are coming out now that are going to help lawyers. And I think you were mentioning that, and there's one company called Harvey AI. And I think OpenAI even is an investor in them. And OpenAI released a kind of like a PR release saying that they're building the first custom trained case law model with OpenAI. So Harvey working with OpenAI to make a GPT-4 level model that has a lot of case law in it, so that it doesn't make up case law. Because I think a lot of people heard about, if you talk to any lawyer about ChatGPT, immediately the first thing they tell me is, oh yeah, well, but and they tell me this one story, I got a lot of press where it made up a bunch of case law, which it can, obviously. But if you're using it within ChatGPT, the interface, that is just a simple chatbot. It's not using the API, and it's not designed for what like Harvey is designing it to do. It's just this universal chatbot. So So anyway, long story short, yeah, hopefully if you use lawyers, your legal fees can go down if they're using these tools, but maybe they'll just bill twice as many.
Right. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. Like in the end, it's the fee. And we all have situations out there where we're like, oh, I need an attorney friend, or I need somebody. And if you don't know somebody personally, it's an expensive fee to go out and attain somebody to get some legal advice. And if this is something that can at least bridge the gap for not only for just regular people who are just out there looking for legal advice, but for, like you said, for attorneys, that they can, and it's not necessarily to take place of paralegals or anything like that, but it can bridge that gap to make things a little bit cheaper. And there is the possibility that it could take away some type of position jobs that way, because you can kind of get rid of the side part of it, but in the end, the goal is to use it as a tool. And that's the whole reason we talk about AI tools, is it's a tool to help out us as humans and help us out in society. And so, I think it's a natural way to go with a learning language model of an AI. So,
yeah, so I think what's really cool about this is that it just goes to show that you can fine tune a model using case law. And they found that essentially it's working really well. We'll see what the lawyers have to say about it. But no matter what, I would already go and say that there have been use cases, just GPT-4 out of the box, right? I was able to get some questions answered that I would normally have to go to a lawyer. So there's so many use cases that regular GPT-4, where you can get, I would say, expert analysis with the whole idea that you should fact check it. It can be wrong, but it can answer a lot of questions that normally you'd have to spend a lot of money to do. And so that's just awesome in general. This seems to be a tool. I went to a website, and you have to be, it's meant for law firms. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah. And too, I was thinking as you're talking, like, for people who are in rental agreement, contract agreement, right? For both sides, whether you want to set up a rental agreement for the house that you own, or you're someone who is renting and you're having a problem with your landlord, and them trying to take advantage of you. Having access to something like this could really benefit you, because if we know the way the economy is right now anyway. To be able, someone who's living paycheck to paycheck, who can barely afford groceries and rent and utilities, and then their landlord comes in and tells them they have so many days to get out, not knowing what the laws are and being able to contact an attorney. This is an accessible tool with AI that could solve that problem for them. It can at least give them advice in the right direction, which again, as we like to talk about, that's a win for the little guys. Obviously, for the big guys in the companies with attorney wise, it could cause some issues. But for the little guys, hey, I mean, he can give legal advice, and hopefully the right kind of legal advice. So.
Yeah, I've seen people just upload to GPT-4, a contract, and just ask questions about it, and then also say, hey, by the way, I live in Illinois, and a lot of the stuff's like I said, I'm not always get legal advice if it makes sense, and this is not legal advice, of course, but it's it can do a pretty good job on some basic. You can talk to your contract, essentially give it context to a large language model, tell them your problem, upload your contract, and say, okay, because a lot of times, a lot of the questions are literally written right in the contract, but a lot of times it's kind of like legal jargon that's kind of confusing, and the models are fairly good at, answering those questions.
And also it can pick up on, we all know that attorneys and stuff like to put in little clauses in there that you may just glance over, and it's purposely put in a spot where you do glance over it, right? So having an AI, especially if you have a trained AI program that's dedicated to law with an API, it can catch those things, right? You can have it comb these contracts and maybe catch things that are not common in those type of contracts, which can be beneficial to people too. And again, this is kind of all related to the big guys, right? So this is an AI tool that OpenAI is partnership with, right? OpenAI is the big guy, and that is a tool that they're looking to invest in. So that means they must see something on the larger side of it that is going to benefit them as well.
Just so everyone's clear, though, this tool is meant for law firms, and it says like law firms, tax, like it's I don't, maybe they will make a version for like individuals, but ideally, if your law firm's using this, hopefully maybe what cost $500 to do something for it can reduce that down. And then we're also mentioning how GPT-4, just like, because this is based upon GPT-4, just fine-tuned, is also just good for the individual, right? If you prompt it right, you ask the right questions, use the individual could possibly not have to use, you could go into your lawyer with a lot more information. So you can kind of either have less time on the phone or even kind of pre-write documents and just ask them to maybe proofread them. But again, depending, that'd be more for like a small business, or it just depends kind of where you're at.
Yeah. Well, and to, on your point that you're saying there, it kind of leads us into the other big news of what we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, but it's getting more, is Apple. Apple and Google, right? Apple and Google, two large technology companies out there that are teaming up. I mean, that's a plot twist right there. I mean, who would have ever thought? I mean, the Android and the Apple market, I mean, they've always been, the memes are everywhere, right? And so seeing them team up, even though they've teamed up before in the past, and it's been kind of, more in the news, but being able to have them come on and take on, is that a good thing for the market or a bad thing for the market?
So they're basically, Apple announced something along the lines that they are in a partnership with Google to use some of their generative AI models. And there was also talks that Apple was talking to OpenAI. And so it looks like the OpenAI didn't, work out, and now they're going to work with Google. And that I think that was kind of surprising to a lot of people. But then there was like this other plot twist that happened where they just came out and said they have this new model. It's called Realm, and that stands for Reference Resolution as Language Modeling. And when they described it, they said Realm aims to enhance the intuitiveness of interactions with virtual assistants like Siri by enabling the AI system to see and interpret on-screen content. And so all of a sudden when I saw that, I was like, wait a second, this makes a lot of sense. Maybe, obviously they need some, and I'm just kind of speculating here, right? But, it seems like maybe Google and Gemini's Google's large language model is a little bit further along than some of theirs. And so they might use that for like text generation and image generation, content generation. But when you think about Apple, when, on the phone and on the computer, what really stood out to me is where it says AI systems see and interpret on-screen content. And this, I forgot to mention here, this Realm model they released, they were saying it was better than GPT-4 at some things. And so that was kind of the disconnect. Why are they partnering with Google if they've got this, great model? And so I guess what was kind of interesting about that is that maybe they are kind of positioning themselves to maybe use Siri to do actions on your phone. So if their model knows what to do when it sees a screen, I can almost see it be like, for example, if I want to get an Uber, I have Uber and Lyft on my phone. And to me, it's like they're both the same. Like, I don't really care. I just want the cheapest ride. Well, it's about how much is the ride and when is it going to get there, right? If it's like really far away, I'll pay a little bit more money. And so if you could just tell Siri, hey, find me a ride in the next, I'm going to wait like 15 minutes or whatever. And they just go both to Uber and Lyft on your behalf. And they just kind of click through, their phone, they find the right price and they book it. I mean, that would be a great thing. Like, I don't want to do both. Right. And so, that could be possibly like what they're doing is kind of like positioning Siri to act as like an agent that goes and, kind of clicks around on your phone behind the scenes, seeming
I think
that
it's I think it's natural too, right? Because Siri was really that was the first. We'll call it what humans would have assumed would be close to an AI, right? Somebody you could talk to, and they understood what you're saying, and they would pull up results. And so Siri was always ahead of the game, and I guess really until Amazon Alexa came around, right? And then at that point,
like I always think of them as like the reason why I always thought AI would never work is because it was so bad.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I know
it's
just so terrible.
in the very beginning, it was amazing. The first time you used it a couple times, but then after you started trying to use it, it got really bad.
Well, Eric, you'd be calling John. I'd be like, what? Like, what's going on?
I don't know how many times
I hear you saying.
And I don't know how many times I've said something. I mean, I think everybody has called Alexa. I'm trying not to say it to Alexa. I think I have one in the room in my Activate. But I think every time everybody's cussed out her at some point.
Yeah.
You know, and so because they just don't do what you want it to do, and same with Siri, and same with everybody else. So, but with that said, it seemed like that was a natural place for it to go, especially when you can say, turn on the lights and turn on, whatever. So it seemed like a natural place to go. So it makes you almost wonder what's cooking, like what, because now we know Apple's got, we know that they're at least leaning towards it. Amazon's been a little bit more quiet. I've seen a couple different things out there about them, what they're investing in and investing into their own language learning model and getting that going. But it makes you wonder when that does pop, when they do drop that technology, that will be, that will be another leap into it and what we can do.
And I don't know if that's what they're doing with it, but it makes sense if they would. And they didn't really say what they're going to do with this. They just kind of like threw this thing out there. But I have seen there's this weird like orange looking. It's not like it looks like not an iPhone because an iPhone actually looks nice, but it's just like this hardware device. It's called the Rabbit. It got all this attention a while ago, and the idea was that it goes and it uses what's called a large action model, and it goes and takes actions for you. And so it was kind of like the example I gave where it can go to an app and you can order an Uber without ever going into the app. And so immediately when I saw this thing drop from Apple, this new model, I was like, oh, maybe this is their like way of trying to get ahead of like that, where you use Siri to do as a large action model. And I think that would make sense. And who knows? And maybe one day, if this does happen, that's a whole podcast in itself, because you then have to start questioning, there are so many apps that I would never open ever again.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I would never open Uber again, never open Lyft again, because to me, they're commodities. I would just say, go, get me a ride. Here's where I'm going. And then all I would want to know back is like the make and model of the car, the license plate, and like the map showing like where it's at, right? All of which they could just like put on the screen. So that is kind of a whole different.
Dan, you bring up a good point. That's something I didn't really think about, and I'm sure a lot of people haven't really thought about. It is if you put AI onto a phone. I know Samsung's tried it, but theirs is still minor. But you're right. I mean, would that be the end of apps? I mean, obviously you sure have to have app in the background, but your function, the way the whole marketing of apps right now is to make you scroll, right? I mean, you're using your thumb. That's the addiction part of it. So if you add AI into this, I mean, it takes the thumb away, and you no longer. So what does that do to apps? What is that? How does that function?
I mean, I've got a theory on this, and I hate apps so much. I mean, they're just like the fact that you have to download all these apps on your phone. They should all just be bookmarks. You press the button, it just goes to a mobile website, all this thing. It's all just to suck data off your phone. So I've always just kind of been annoyed by apps, and there's too many to do. So, I think that, there was someone who was mentioning how like large language models it's like the universal interface is chat. Like if you think about what is the most, as a user interface, talking, even when you like talk to yourself, like when you think in your brain, a lot of times you can almost hear yourself talking to yourself, right? It's like even internally we're using chat, inner monologue. And so, chat is like the last UI, or like the ultimate UI kind of makes sense. And so, yeah, like, and that's in that sense, many apps would would go away. I don't think all of them, but a lot of them, if they're simply like you're going there to input an address, and like an Uber or Lyft, I think it's just simple. Those are a simple example of like two apps I have to go to every, I don't have to, and most people don't do this, but like I live out in the suburbs and I go to the city a lot, or coming back and forth, and it's like one of them might be like a $15 difference. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So then I will check like both of them. And it's just huge waste of time.
Yeah. Well,
so I think, like you could get rid of a lot. Well, and then it's almost like one app that would like be the interface to all of these, and they'd all just be like API calls, meaning you have this one interface, which I think Apple would try to do a Siri, where it just calls. It's just like, hey, Uber, how much do you want to charge for this? Lyft, how much do you want to charge for this? And all of a sudden, like it's going to mess, if this was happening, mess up all of their business models, because they want to sell you ads. They want, when you click on their app, they're showing you stuff. They're trying to be like, oh yeah, hey, grab Uber Eats tonight. When you go on Uber, right? 15% off, like all this garbage. So I think it'd be like super, super disruptive.
Yeah.
Like I said, I went down this crazy.
No. Hey, this is why this is AI Unscripted, right? This is the whole point. It's not even a topic we discussed ever we even wanted to talk about. So
yeah. So
but
anyway,
it's a great topic. I mean, it's a great thought because marketing changes, right? Like you said, for ads, and the whole marketing changes. The whole, how do you get our attention if we're not looking at the screen as much? Or do we continue to look at the screen and AI enhances it? Or do we not have to look at the screen as much? Because obviously the natural transition would be to augmented reality. With what we have with the Apple Vision Pro. Eventually, it won't be a big clunker thing on your head. It'll be glasses, right? Or eventually into contacts or whatever. Yeah. And then, so you're no longer interfacing with a screen. It's just in your environment. But there will be a transition period in between, because not everybody's going to go out and buy the Vision Pro. So that is interesting of what it will be.
There's so many different things. I mean, I think the most immediate thing is, how does this business model change if less people need to go to your app to use your app? How does that change that company's business model? Meaning, if they made a lot of their money because people are seeing ads there, or like, and then it also just commoditizes things, right? If Uber and Lyft, it's just a matter of like price. I mean, it can change a lot of things.
Yeah, because like originally you think, AI is going to help with app development, because now you can just talk about what kind of app you want to create and it'll create it. But if you really think about long term, and especially how fast AI technology is developing, that app, like little games you play, solitaire on your phone, I mean, those type of games may really kind of become a thing of the past. Now, I say that, and we've been playing solitaire on Windows, a gateway computer, Windows 95, all the way to still playing it on our phones to this day. But but I think it does. I think we have a good point on this.
I'm looking at some of the apps on my phone, and it's like some of them are just so stupid. Like I have to have an app like on United to like get the Wi-Fi, or I use it to log in, and so I think a lot of this stuff is like just garbage apps, and there's some meaningful apps, but a lot of them I can't.
Cruise had to have a Norwegian app to be able to access, to be able to text people.
They just want your data, right? It's like and so I think that this is maybe one upside of it, but then you also we don't want to go too far down this this rabbit hole, but Apple, I can't. So what I'm hoping is that AI allows it so that you don't have to have apps only on, on iOS, which is Apple, or Android, which is Google, and they have a monopoly. And it's actually interesting that Apple. I've been saying this forever, and I mean, it's not like, it's just like an opinion. I don't even know what monopoly is considered in the Justice Department anymore. It's like, I feel like some weird moving target. But anyway, they just got charged. They just got some antitrust lawsuit against them from the Justice Department, and so one thing that's really annoying is that they charge for every purchase you have on on an app on the iPhone. They take 30%, Apple, and to me that's absolutely insane. And so I look forward to, and I think one of the biggest problems that we got into this position was because it costs a lot of money to make an app. And so when Microsoft tried to create like their phone and their app ecosystem, like I think developers were kind of like, listen, we don't want to like make 5 different versions of our app. 2's enough. And then what happened is that then like Apple decided like, hey, we're going to start taking 30% of it.
I've always found irony in, because it's just the flip opposite of the 90s when Apple was against Microsoft for creating a monopoly and not allowing their stuff Microsoft stuff to be, downloaded on Apple computers or Macs. And then now, Apple, you can't, it's either you have apps are available on the iPhone or Android. And there for a while, it was you couldn't get them on both. A lot of them is either or. Now the market's gotten a little bit better, but
yeah. And just one more point on this. So like, it's nice now that because large language models can create code, it is going to be easier to like, take the code you have, put it on different app stores. Ideally, we don't really need an app store. Ideally, these custom GPTs and GPTs, which are like people are, we're in the beginning of like AI apps, whatever that kind of goes down to. Hopefully there's just kind of like more of an open app store, so to speak, where it's not like necessarily controlled by just, if you don't have, a few companies, right?
Right.
That's the most ideal situation, I think.
Well, I think to continue a little bit on this unscripted part, and then we'll move on to the next topic. I think this conversation we had, I was picking up on vibes from you a little bit that I think we need to at least go ahead and our relationship's still kind of new, right? And so we're still learning a lot about each other. So I think I really need to know are you an Android person or are you an Apple person?
I'm an Apple. I'm Apple.
See, Android is so much better than Apple. So I think we're going to have to disagree on that one.
That's funny. I came over to Apple a while back because Android a while ago wouldn't say when you download an app, do you want to give the permission to use the GPS, for example, or whatever. And now I think they do, but that was something that Apple has done for a while, and it just annoyed me. I'm like, it's similar to AI. Like if you don't control your AI controls you. If you don't, have permissions on your phone, it's just, it's like, it's
listen,
just right.
You sell your entire
now they've done it.
Log on to Apple. What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about.
I have a bunch of problems with Apple too. Like I'm one of those people that, put me in a focus group for either company. I'm going to tell them like all these things they should be doing better. And no one's going to listen because there's just 2 companies that.
And and 2, everything all the new stuff that Apple gets, right? I remember when you all finally got swipe keyboards, and everybody's talking about how great that technology was when Android users have been using it for years. So I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. So.
Yeah. No, I'm not a huge like Apple fanboy. Just
I get you though.
I'm pretty much would love to have another company come in here that's in the United States. I don't want Huawei giving me phones from China. Probably not a good idea, but nothing against, but just in general, like it anyway.
I agree with you. You always want a third party in there until you really start thinking about what a third party could do, whether it's a politics or a phone company or something like that. You're like, okay,
it should be U.S. company, I'm big on having U.S. like infrastructure in the United States should be owned by U.S. companies. So that's different day.
To be honest, I think a lot of that, this conversation that we did, it wasn't intentional, but I think we wanted to talk about big companies and how big companies were utilizing AI. A natural transition into this, I think, would be is little companies, right? The little guys, and that's really what we're here for. That's what your website with Inquest AI is about. It's about getting the little guys a voice and getting their AI information out there. A lot of the things that I know you and I had kind of had a conversation a little bit about earlier this week was the 11 labs, right? The curious world of voice cloning. We know that with OpenAI recently, they've released videos of their voice cloning capabilities, and it's amazing. And they're being a little bit more cautious about it for obvious reasons, right? It's a cool tool. We could all benefit from it. You could do an entire podcast with it just by cloning your voice and then having someone read it. But there is some potential for people to do bad things with it, whether it's fraud calls, right? You get someone's voice. I mean, how many times have you answered a phone and you sit there and said hello and no one's there, And, there's always a speculation someone's potentially could be recording your voice when you say that, and then boom, they've got it. And then they can use your voice for, a lot of these big companies have, like banks, they have voice recognition when you call for security reasons. And, my mother-in-law one time received a call saying that, that someone had kidnapped my wife, but they made it seem so realistic, and they figured out her name and stuff. So I would imagine if you could put a voice to it, there's a lot of bad things that could happen. But you have these little guys who are saying, hey, we got this tools, let's go ahead and put the technology out.
Yeah. So so first off, I think everyone should just know that this exists. And so just like, when you get an email from someone, in some other country that says that they've got this great opportunity, they just need you to wire them $10,000. We all know not to do that.
Exactly.
Yet
Well,
some people fall for that, right? So that's always gonna be the case. And this is a new one of those things where, yes, you should know that the technology is out there where someone can clone your voice, or you can clone your voice, and you can use it for, in a productive way. And it can also be used in that, bad way. Just like email, super productive, but then yes, it opens up, your inbox to people to impersonate someone else. I mean, I see these emails all the time, right? Just the other day, someone pretend there's an email where obviously someone, they said, hey, I just changed my banking information, and it looked like it was an employee of mine. But then when you look at their email address, it's some weird email address. And so there's always going to be those issues on the goods. So on the flip side of this, there is 11 labs. They've been around for a long time too. I know OpenAI just released this thing called Voice Engine. I think it's going to be in some of these some larger car, so they're partnering with like different car manufacturers, and so you're just gonna be able to like get in your car and say, hey, turn the temperature to 72 degrees, turn on 99.5 on my radio, or play Dan and Eric's podcast or whatever, and you start talking, and you don't have to press any knobs or anything. And so I think they announced it because it's starting. They're going to start pushing it into these partnerships, these other car manufacturers and other people. However, there are tools available to creators. One's 11 Labs, and about a year ago, I just sent to Eric earlier today this. I cloned my voice, and I had also created this like Minions movie, fake movie promo about like AI taking over, and now it's actually like a very interesting. It was just kind of just for fun. And anyway, I sent that to him, and I had it in my voice, and now and since then it's gotten even better. And so, but what it's really great for, I think, is in the past, some of the companies I've had have created commercials, and and this is the problem too, I guess, where we're going to talk about a lot is like, okay, it also takes jobs away from voice actors possibly. Or they could, if they're really good at selling their voice, they can clone their voice, and then you could use you could buy their voice on 11's Labs. So like, first off, you can clone your own voice, but also you can go into this whole database of all these different voices and search for the ones you like, and then use it. And then some of the money does go back to the creator of the voice, which I think is kind of cool, right? So they have like a lab to also clone your own voice and allow other people to use it.
And I'd be honest, that's a good point, though. Yeah, I mean, I didn't think about that, and that is a good thing, that if someone uses it, because we all know there's some people out there who have radio voices, right, and who have commercial voices, and I think I never really thought about it from that angle, but I think as long as if you can say that the proceeds are going to go back to this person in some way, that's beneficial. But too, I don't know if you've seen some of the trending things, and we can keep talking about it, but there's a trending video going around on the internet and TikTok and YouTube and all the above with bringing back comedians, right? And where they've cloned comedian voices, and in the AI learns their voices, learns how they talk, learns their style of comedy, and you literally can have people who are no longer with us give you their version of today's events on what it is. And that's exciting, because think about if some of your favorite comedians who are no longer here, like I think of like Robin Williams, right? Amazing person, great voice, great comedy, and then that he's no longer with us. But at the same time, you could pull him back into cartoons. You could pull him back into different things, which is kind of exciting in some ways.
Because I don't use Siri. My wife always jokes around, like kind of like how because I make fun of, I used like Alexas and everything, not in our house, right? I just was like, I can turn on my own music, right?
Right.
'Cause the joke was that like, these are not good for anything. They are absolutely horrible. And when you ask them to do something important, they call someone, they call the wrong person, and you don't know who they're calling. It could be like some person you don't even want to call, like ever again, and they just happen to be in your phone. And so yeah, but now I'm like all into AI, so it is kind of funny. Yeah,
It is
you
fun.
bring up a good point. Maybe I have, my Siri now that it's going to be useful, because you can. I mean, I use voice assistants like ChatGPT all the time now because they can actually understand what I'm saying,
Yeah.
and they actually give good feed. They can actually respond right. But yeah, I would like to have, maybe my assistant should be someone really funny that is like a comedian of mine with like a really good
Yeah.
witty, uh
The witty
that's
responses, like if you could set
that's
up your
making me
AI
laugh
assistant.
throughout the day.
Yeah, I mean, like you could, if you set up your AI assistant to be able to give you genuine. I'm just going to use Robin Williams because I brought him up already. But if you can make him like, and he's there, right? And, and he
Yeah.
knows you, and it's even better because like he can give you the humor throughout the day. Because I'm the opposite of you. Like I fully embrace having an Alexa in the house and be able to be in the shower if you want to be, and then tell it to play music, and you don't have to worry about changing it. You can just change it whatever you want to, or if you're out in the garage or whatever. So I like it, but I definitely get the caution of it, and I've definitely yelled at her many. I call it her, right? But I've yelled at her many times.
I'm sure I'll start using it now. It just was like, because now I'm totally sold on this technology because it actually works. And I just made fun of the fact that like, before this, this always on, always listening device, it didn't quite get to the threshold of, turning on music for me was not worth the always on, always listening.
It's got the
And
mute button though. You can turn the microphone off.
yeah, no, the technology is all based on, it always is listening for the
Yep.
word Alexa, therefore it's always listening.
Mhm.
And I guess since which is another funny thing, like I care a lot about privacy, and I don't trust big tech. I mean, like, you don't, like, this is funny is like, because Eric and I kind of just met, and that's what's so cool about this, whole podcast, is that we're still learning about each other. But okay, so yeah, AI is like, I'm obsessed with it now. But we're going to be coming across these crossroads of, okay, depending on how this all works, like, do we have privacy or do we not? And there's this one thing I just want to bring up with Double Alexa, is that Roomba had there's this article out there where they were collecting, so who's now owned by Amazon, that they had pictures of people like sitting on the toilet, and there's picture, like they were like, looked like mapping people's homes. And and it was all part of like, kind of like some data, when you click the button, you're like, hey, do you want to help make the service better? And it's something along these lines, because I don't need to get, sued by them. But it was something, and anyway, so, some, and these images of like people in their homes were being seen by some researchers at this, that who were trying to improve the product. And that's when I was like, wow, that's it. Like, also my Roomba it can use like what, LiDAR or something. I don't even know what that, it can use just sensors. I don't care if it takes a little bit longer, bounce around. It doesn't need, cameras. And I think that's a huge, bringing all this up, because there's a lot of fears with AI. Some, they fear that it's going to kind of replace them or augment their job tremendously. They don't want that. Others, it's like, hey, this can be used in really bad ways. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to throw that one out there.
Yeah, it's interesting because like you said, I mean, AI will not only it will not need somebody to at some Amazon corporate room looking at these images. It's just it'll remember it and have instant access to it at all time. And so really, if you think about privacy wise, AI was the biggest threat versus anything we've ever had. Not even close. There's nothing even close, because once Alexa, you say something to it, and you can go in the app and look and see what it'll give you your statistics of what you said and the results that it gave and that type of thing. And then you can delete it. And I'm sure it's kept somewhere, but it's still just minor stuff.
Yeah.
But with AI, I mean, it will probably be able to keep anything and everything.
Well, and it can just learn so fast about data, right? So if it can read 1 million words in like a second, analyze it, and so that I think that's what, and so that I think we actually have to rethink how much data we're giving away, right? So we go back to like the apps, and it's so funny. This is totally unscripted because this was not even anything we were even going to talk about today. But it kind of makes sense to bring it up. Is that you probably want to be careful how much data you're giving away, because it's not necessarily, oh, you have something to hide. It's more like, do you want to be on every email list that's hyper marketing you for these things because you happen to have given this away, and now all these companies are these other companies are selling all that data, right? And so they're just vacuuming up information about you, and then these tools to hyper, personalize are there, and to kind of try to push you in a direction to buy a certain product. That technology is kind of like that recommendation system and personalization. That's where, like, on one side, we talked last time, was really cool, right? Personalization, great. But then on the bad side is, that it could be used to like profile people and do a lot of, I would say, negative things.
And the other thing on top of all that is with AI, what's the part where it's going to not only prompt you to do some of these things, but it will always remember what your preferences are, and that's kind of the benefit. So that's the benefit to like allowing Google to remember your passwords, right? Or because it provides a convenience to it. I don't, with it. I can say this as an Android user, because I know Apple people, you still struggle with this, but it'll automatically, if I go to a website, it'll automatically pre-fill my name, my address, my phone number, my email address. And I just click yes, and it's done. It's done. Yeah. I'm watching my wife use her iPhone, and she's sitting there typing it all up still. And I'm just like, see, but
Macs do that too. I feel like they're all the same now.
All right, maybe I'm behind in time, but they didn't do it for a while. But with that said, though, it was all fun and games until you started going through Facebook and seeing an ad for something that you just had a conversation with somebody about, didn't even search it, didn't do anything, right? I know there's some conspiracy people saying, "Oh, it doesn't happen." It happens to me many times where I've even had a thought about something, and I not even talked about it, not even thought about it, and then next thing you know, it's in your ad. A garage door.
Yeah, and it's like there's so many cookies cookies. I love the name of these things on your computer, right? They're really tracking devices that we all agree to. And so yeah, it's very interesting. And I apologize for going down this path, because it's like it's not necessarily the most productive when talking about AI tools. But
no, this is the whole point. This is stuff we enjoy talking about, right?
It's relevant with AI, kind of. Getting back to the 11 Labs thing, yes, you can clone your voice. So if someone calls and says, "Hey," pretends to be somebody else, or you think it is somebody else, but it seems odd, one thing I would say is just ask them a fact that only you would. Say your significant other's on the other line. It sounds just like them. Well, ask them something that only they would know, and that's where, like, okay. That's the large, like, they don't have that information. They can clone your voice, but they can't clone everything that's in your brain.
Right.
And the other thing too is that banks and all these other institutions, they're going to stop using just as these AI tools come out to hack something, the people that are also going to use AI tools to fight them. So I would argue they're not going to just be using your voice anymore to allow you to like access your bank account.
Right. Only I can see it, as before we move on to the next topic, I could see a lot of middle schoolers and high schoolers out there breaking up with they're making their friend break up with their friend's girlfriend using their friend's voice just to get back at them or something like that. So there's gonna be a lot of tears.
Like a Mirror episode or something. It's terrifying. Yeah.
Well, kind of like to move us into the next one would be is we kind of want to talk about the new DALL-E image editing. That's been big news for all of us who have had fun using the DALL-E to create images, whether it was for your business to create a logo, to create something for your school project or your work or whatever the scenario could be. We've all had fun generating it and then watching some of the most amazing pictures you've ever seen, and then at the same time watching it try to spell something right. It's like almost impossible for that thing to do consistently. So, but with this new update, you can now edit things kind of live as you continue to make the picture. So
yeah, it's like I think they like call it in painting tool or something, and essentially you can like highlight an area. So let's say it creates an image. You want to create an image of a person on the moon sunbathing or something, and they have a orange hat on. You could highlight that orange hat and say, make this yellow, and then it will just change only the hat to be yellow, and it'll keep the person consistent, keep everything else consistent. So it's kind of cool. I noticed that it works sometimes, other times it like just ignored me, but yeah, it is nice to have. And these are some, and this is an example of like OpenAI just doing what all these, there's so many other tools out there that do this as well, but they kind of just incorporated it. And it's a nice to have.
Well, I was going to say, I don't know how many times I've created something, whether it was for Sphere AI or something like that. And you create it and it comes up with, like, you do the prompt and it comes up with the most amazing picture. You're like, yes, this is what I want. But it's got one little thing that's off on it. And you're like, okay, do exactly that, but change this, the lower half. And then it'll just redo the entire, it looks nothing like what you did the first time. So to have this tool to be able to just to tell it, I just want this part to be done, I think is a big leap in its technology.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the biggest thing, because every single time before it was just resubmitting the prompt and it was just randomly generating something different. So it's nice to have the consistency. So once you find something you like, then you can tweak it. So I think it's really kind of cool. Makes DALL-E 3, which is ChatGPT's image generation tool, so much better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with everything, it's obviously with the ability to use DALL-E to create images. Now, I know they've already got a lot of guidelines in there to prevent you from creating copyright situations, and people have figured ways around it. And I don't care who you are, what you are, humans will always find rabbit holes, or not rabbit holes, but back doors into everything that we deal with. That's just what we do. But they try to put copyright things in place. Obviously, we talked about the voice cloning as well. Where do we feel that with ethics being involved in AI tools, where do you draw the line between, it's kind of almost like when we look at freedom of speech, right? It's like, at what point, where do you draw the line? Like it's good to have that, but it's also good to have a line too. So with AI, it's good to have the innovation. You want to push it. It's kind of like with 11 Labs, they're pushing forward with the voice cloning when OpenAI is saying, okay, hey, we're gonna pause until we can figure this out ethically wise. Yeah. So, what's our thoughts with that?
Okay, so I go back to always this first thing is that we have existing laws and we should apply them. And just because AI is here, it doesn't mean that they go away. So I can't clone your voice and sell your voice. And I can't create images of a famous person and sell them. At least I don't think so. I know that people in the public, there's certain use cases where you're allowed to create a comic about a president and make fun of them because they're a public figure. Yes. But you can't just go make a deep fake of your neighbor or someone at school. It's just not allowed. But then other than that, I am very terrified that we're going to have a group of people that say, hey, we're going to choose what you can, what you can do with AI, that it's almost goes back to what is allowed to be said on social media. Well, then all of a sudden people are being kicked off of social media for political reasons or different things. And I think that is like a slippery slope. A lot of people don't like that word, and there's probably a better way of saying it. So to me, I think we need to think about this like the internet. Imagine all the amazing things we have to the internet. If we would have allowed the internet if we tried to guardrail it so much, it wouldn't be what it is today. However, there are problems on the internet. There are bad websites. So you just have to try to navigate that. And so to me, we need to allow people to have, we should, I think, be allowing people to have the freedoms that they regularly have.
But the laws, just all technology, you're going to have the good and the bad, right? I think we may have mentioned this last time. The invention of a car, it was great. Now you can go a lot further. You can live further out in the suburbs and work in the city. You can go on trips. You can explore the world. The invention of the vehicle is significantly. You can transport goods, but you also have the downside to it, right? You have car accidents. You have deaths. You have and people who have passed away in a car wreck way too young in life and not be able to make it. And that's the downside to vehicles. Same with airplanes, same with any, we still have train derailments and everything that goes on with that. So with every technology that's going to help society as a whole, there is always drawbacks to it. And I think it's us as a society, as a human race, to police it. And I think there's always the greater good. I think society typically, as a whole, always looks for the greater good in things, and us as a society always try to police the small portion that tries to manipulate. Now, a small portion can use the powers to do bad things. We learned that during a lot of our history with September 11th and all the other stuff. They can use something that we use for everyday travel to exploit our weaknesses. But us as a society pushed back on that and then put regulations in place to prevent that from happening. I think AI, the internet was the same way. Like you said, there's bad things that can happen on the internet. And as a society, we try to push that out. And I think AI is going to be the same way. I think it's going to be a lot of good that it can do for people. And there's some bad things that can happen. And I think as a society, we'll always try to get the good stuff.
Most definitely will happen. Just like bad things happen with the internet. Bad things happen with cars. Like it's just, there's no perfect world. And anyone who tries to make it in a perfect world, I think is gonna, I think that's been tried, it's failed, and it leads to bad things. So I think it's a really difficult subject. It's going to be interesting to see because it's going to be how quickly this technology continues to advance. It might be even more difficult because normally things don't advance this quickly. And I think that's really the biggest problem, is that it's happening at such a fast rate. This technology is evolving that I think that's like the really the thing we're not yet used to.
Look,
right.
When this podcast is on episode 250, we will still be probably talking about the ethical part of it and the concerns that we have in the security part, but it won't go away. But okay. So with all that said, the next thing, kind of one of our last topics, I think we will discuss is going to be AI tools, and that's the theme of this episode, is AI tools. But for a lot of our listeners and viewers out there, as the person who looked out at Inquest AI and saw the vision that you had to combine a site where everybody can kind of get together and look at their different AI tools, what works the best, what doesn't work the best, and have a conversation about it. What do you feel for anybody that's listening to us right now? Where do they start if they're not familiar? Maybe they've used ChatGPT a little bit here and there, but they don't, nothing more than crazy. So where do they go to kind of get started with AI tools? What do you think is the best resource for them?
Well, I mean, I'm totally biased on this because I'm creating this platform, but so on our platform, and I talked about it last time, so I don't want to, I'll just try to keep it really fast. But if you go to our platform, there's a search bar. You can search for things you want to do with AI, and that will help you either find a conversation between a person and an AI, how they achieve some goal with AI, or in which a lot of times we'll end up using some type of a tool. So it could be ChatGPT, or it could be a tool that someone built on top of ChatGPT's platform, which is called a custom GPT. And that's more like programmed to do a specific task really well. And so I would just say that you have to start using these tools. They're really easy to use. You can go to our site, see how other people have used them in meaningful and useful ways, so you can get an idea of what they can do. So, and then I would just say like $20 a month for something like ChatGPT is a total no-brainer. It offers a lot of value, but you can now still use it for free. And actually, that's one other announcement that OpenAI made this week. For anyone who hasn't used ChatGPT, you can go directly to their website and now press try it now without even logging in or anything. And you're using ChatGPT 3.5, which is not that great compared to 4, but it's better than nothing. But
it's a good entry tool. That's where we all kind of started off with, is 3.5.
Yeah, and so ChatGPT itself is a tool. And so until you understand that tool enough, I think that'd be the first tool to understand. And then the other tools we have on our site are all built upon what we call like a base model. ChatGPT is a base model. It's a general model. And then people are building these AI apps, which are called custom GPTs, on top of the base model to do specific tasks really, really well. And then you can pick up those tools to perform a task. Our site helps you search for those tools, find the tool that fits your task, see how other people have used that tool through shared conversations, and then you can go and do that too. And so that's how I think is like the best way to get started.
I agree with ChatGPT. I mean, the best way to do it, to kind of go on top of what Dan's saying, is that you go use ChatGPT. Literally start off with, hey, how you doing? I mean, just something as simple as that, and you're going to get a response back. And for people who haven't used it, you're so used to Google, where you go to Google and you search, and it will give you results based off of what other people have uploaded on the internet. With ChatGPT and AI, it's not giving you a predetermined result. It is giving you a result based off of not only what you're saying, but based off of the conversation that you're having with it, or the prompts that you're giving it. It understands context. And that's something that Google does not understand. Google does not understand context of what you're typing. It just looks at what you're typing and goes from there. But AI understands the context of what you mean based off of previous things. So the more you use it, the more you get better at wording things and get it to understand of what you mean. And the more in the Chat GPT part, I mean, the GPT custom GPTs that Dan was talking about, is you will see that Chat GPT 3.5 or 4, it gives you more ambiguous. You kind of have to like prompt it to kind of you got to get good at it. I mean, it's something you learn as you go. And it doesn't require a lot of any type of knowledge base whatsoever. It's literally just conversational training. But a custom GPT is saying, okay, I want a custom GPT that is solely focused on education. And I have created one for ADHD and helping with math homework for kids with ADHD. I have a kid that's got ADHD. He's in 5th grade, and math, it can be the most math homework time can be the most miserable thing in a household. And so this thing, not only does it help you, you can ask for it to help explain problems to a child who, in any grade, it doesn't matter, you can put whatever grade you want, but explain it in a way for someone who has ADHD. And it does a great job of breaking it down. And I made it to be custom to that. Now, if you went and asked GPT just in general without the custom part, you may be able to get it to get to that point, but you'd have to give it a little bit more prompts. It wouldn't understand that that's what it's there for. So let's kind of add a little bit to what you're saying.
And you know what, to bring up a few more, like, I think tools, which I think in the future I'll come more prepared for that, and I will script that a little bit. Is that, so one is like a research GPT. If you go on our site, you'll see it's one of the featured tools, Research GPT. You can click try it now, and it brings you to ChatGPT, and you can use that if you have a subscription to ChatGPT. And what that does is, if you were about to research, you use that. In the background, it already has all these system prompts and instructions. So it's going to now search the web and bring you back research in a better way than if you just use ChatGPT 4 out of the box. Even though it's still using like the ChatGPT 4 engine, it is like programmed to do research really well and to give you your answers back. And so that's an example of a great tool. There's resume builders. If you want to like upload your resume, it will critique your resume, ask you more questions, how it can make it better, ask you like, what job are you trying to do? So that's something people can use it for. If you're not really good at Excel, it can help you. You tell the problem, like there's ones that can help you solve some of the problems you have in Excel. And so there's just a lot of these different use cases. And then next time on the next podcast, maybe we'll come on and just like make sure that we're, talking about a few each week and highlighting a few each week. And I actually think I was supposed to do that for this week. So my bad. But yeah, that's on our site, that you can kind of see those things as well when you go there.
And to add to what you're saying too, is that's what I like about what we're doing as a podcast, right? Is that we're here just to have a conversation. And your website with Inquest AI, that's what it's about. It's about having a conversation about AI tools. My business model that I've done with Sphere AI is about having a conversation with tools about that is more of a marketing side of it, right? So I'm looking at more of how our company is going to utilize these things to market their business, and together with both of our ventures that we're doing, I think they both make sense because in the end, with my marketing side, with your logical, like how do you use the side of the educational part of it. And with our podcast, in the end, it's all conversation. This is all technology that we have, that we are all, everybody, I don't care who you are, even the people who don't know anything about it, when your coworker at work or whatever, your friend down the street, your neighbor, they either know a lot about it, little about it, or nothing about it. And this right here, I think is what we're doing, is we wanted to have, I enjoyed having that conversation with people, and some people like to talk about it, some people don't. And so when you find your people who like to have that conversation, it's nice to have that network, and that's what we want to do. We want to build a network with people who want to join in our conversation with us, who want to, participate in, not only if you want to participate in developing AI tools, if you want to learn about AI tools, or if you want to look to find somebody that can help you with your business, that you don't want to necessarily get into it yourself, but you want to have somebody that has the knowledge of it. That's what we're here for. We're here to make a community and make that part of it, and that's what I'm excited about with this
yeah, and also
going
highlight
forward.
a lot of the cool use cases. One more I just remember that I saw today that someone uploaded. So they were curious about certain stocks. So they used this certain GPT that would analyze stocks, and that GPT actually analyzed the last earnings call that over like they asked him to go look at multiple earnings calls and a few other things. And I was like, wow, it's blown away. But that's what's really great about these models. It can go ahead, an earnings call is like an hour long or something and has questions. And so you can talk to all that data, and then you could maybe even talk about like what you think that company might do or not do, and ask questions to all that data. And so that's just kind of another cool use case that I want to highlight for this week.
And let's be honest here, okay? For anybody that's out there that uses sports betting, let me tell you, it can help you. It will not give you the right answer, and because humans, you don't know. But I'm telling you, at least if you don't pay attention to the NBA and you want to bet on an NBA game, you can create it to where at least gives you a more educated guess on what you're betting on. So it might not be right, but it usually helps you
like that. Yeah.
Yes. So, well, I think we've covered a lot of topics, and to be honest, there was things that we would talk about, and we didn't, and there's things that we ended up talking about that we had no idea was even going to be there. But again, that's what I love about this podcast. Anything else that you're thinking of before we close it out?
Yeah, I better not. I'm just going to go down some weird rabbit hole. But no, this is great. Appreciate it.
One day we'll have this podcast. We'll save it maybe for like episode 10 or episode 100. We'll do our AI Unscripted, and we'll do like our normal hour long, and then we'll do after hours where we continue the conversation for bonus time, right?
Yeah.
So, well, again, before we close it out, I do want to anybody that's watching, obviously we hope this community will grow over time. And anybody that wants to definitely give us feedback, comments. We're definitely going to start looking for, I'm loving our camaraderie that we have going on, but we definitely want to also bring in the people in the conversation. So I think it'd be, if there's anybody out there that wants to be a guest or has an idea for a guest, we have a couple ideas ourselves and some people we may reach out to, but in the end, we want to bring more people, more perspectives in on our conversations from time to time. So definitely let us know. We are slowly starting to create our social media accounts that we combine together. We both had our own individual ones, but we're going to create one, for this and get this going. So we'll definitely be sharing that within this release of this of episode 2. So definitely subscribe to us, like it, follow, share, listen to it multiple times. You may download it, listen to it in your car ride home. And yeah, so I think that's how I got, Dan.
Awesome.
I don't know how I feel about you though, now that I know that you're an Apple guy. That definitely turned some things for me. So
yeah, I love spending 3 times as much for the phone that basically, I guess now it does the same thing as Google. Maybe I have to rethink it.
That's right. All right. Well, again, I thank everybody for who has stayed and watched this and listened to it, or if you've listened to clips of it from time to time. We appreciate it. I mean, again, it means the more than you ever know to us that you were part of our conversation with us, and definitely comment and send us emails and feedback and all the above. So we'll take it all. So, but if that's it, then I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead and start. We'll start our closeout music, and we'll start sending everybody off. And hope everybody has a great time until episode 3. And episode 3 will be even better than episode 1 and 2. So,
All right.
I'm excited.
Awesome. All right.
All right, everybody. You'll take care. Have a good one.